What's up, Nunchuck? So today we're talking about influencer amnesia, what the fitness industry forgets to tell you. And this is a phenomenon that I've noticed many times where a content creator makes their gains doing one thing, but then they kind of forget about that and they preach something else. And whether it's genuine forgetfulness, a lie by omission, is still kind of screwing you, the content consumer, over. And I think it's important to realize what is going on here. First, and this is a big one, you have steroids. A large part of the fitness industry is on gear. I hate to break it to you, it is very commonplace, especially on more visual platforms like Instagram or TikTok. If you see someone and their physique is like, whoa, they're probably on gear, and they've probably been on a lot of gear for many years. That means that their training is going to be different from a natural lifter in a lot of cases. There are some enhanced lifters who are fantastic sources of information, but I myself, as well as a lot of other natural lifters that I've talked to, wasted years spinning their wheels trying to copy what was never going to work for them, and only developed this kind of ultra-human physique because of the ultra-human amount of testosterone and other drugs in their veins. For example, chasing the pump. Very few natural lifters that I talk to place any kind of meaningful stock in the pump. It's just not a metric that really actually matters. It feels good, it's nice, but it doesn't indicate anything that is actually important. Whereas enhanced lifters, man, for them, it's a valuable metric because it means that there's a lot of blood that is infused with androgens is going into the muscle and is actually doing something. But if you're natural, it just doesn't matter. So mind-muscle connection, drop sets, slower tempos, hard contractions, really feeling the muscle, not being aggressive on the concentric. All these types of things are going to get you a massive pump, but they're not going to get you to grow as a natural. Proximity to failure is another big one. I've seen enhanced lifters who have never, ever grinded a rep. I've seen hundreds of sets from them, and they don't even get a slowing down. They simply stop the set. And maybe this is due to the burn or the sensation. Apparently when you're on drugs, there's just more feeling of the muscle. Fair enough. But if you're natural, I promise you doing this 4, 5, 6 rep and reserve bullshit is going to keep you small. You need to learn how to give a maximum effort during a set. And the enhanced lifter, they can do endless sets and keep going and do this 8 rep and reserve stuff. It's just not going to work for you. And it kind of makes sense to train that way. If you're enhanced, you should probably be a little bit more risk averse. But if you're natural, I really don't think that makes any kind of sense. And the reality is, for a lot of these enhanced guys who are on a ton of drugs and still don't look that good in many cases, they could do almost anything and almost anything would work. Because it is the drugs, it is the pharma side of things that are really driving progression. And in the best possible situation, they trained naturally for many years, and they remember the struggle of hitting plateaus and not being able to just up the dose to get over those plateaus. But in most cases, they seem to forget about that over the course of the years of going down that path. Number 2, when you are very strong, training decisions do change. Now, this sometimes goes hand in hand with the enhanced side of things because on average, enhanced lifters are stronger. And so part of number 2 actually applies to number 1 in a lot of cases. But even if you are natural, the decision-making process does change a little bit once you are very strong. If you are a 6-plate deadlifter or a 7-plate deadlifter, that is just going to take so much more out of you when you attempt that than someone who is a 3-plate or a 2-plate deadlifter. It's just different, and I don't even think it scales linearly. I think it's more of an exponential thing where once you are extremely strong, getting more out of less weight probably makes a lot of sense. And so you see guys using variations that intentionally don't allow them to use very much weight. And this makes sense in their situation because they want to limit that amount of absolute loading and that amount of fatigue. And they want to get the same amount of stimulus or even more stimulus for less fatigue. And so you see the stronger guys focus more on stimulus to fatigue ratio, or perhaps even keeping reps in reserve. There's a reason why RPE or RIR first came from powerlifting on these big, basic, heavy movements, barbell squats, deadlifts, bench presses. Yeah, keeping reps in reserve might make sense, especially if you are an elite lifter. However, if you are a beginner or intermediate, you don't need to worry nearly as much about fatigue because you're not generating as much fatigue. You are literally not capable of generating that much fatigue. And I see a lot of beginners, they are worried about fatigue that they don't have the capabilities to produce. Advanced lifters might also need a little bit more variation, more variability, switching things up more frequently in order to protect and preserve the joints. But if you're a beginner lifter, that should not be needed at all. Beginners and intermediates usually need more consistency. They need more practice on fewer lifts with more of an emphasis on progression. Advanced lifters will often use slightly higher reps as well. So they might float more into like the 10 to 15 rep range, the 15 to 20 rep range, maybe even 20 to 30 rep range. Whereas beginners are probably better off focusing on more like 5 to 10 type of stuff. It allows you maybe more touches on the bar. It allows you to keep more consistent technique. And it allows you probably to drive progression a little bit more actively, and you don't need to be limiting the weight anyway. So I would focus more on like 5 to 10 type of stuff rather than copying your favorite fitness influencer who is super strong, super advanced, and has been at this for a decade or more. A lot of fitness professionals will often also forget that some of the movements that they do and they really enjoy, a lot of their audience simply cannot do. So a lot of variations of pull-ups into that hypertrophy rep range, 5 plus reps, 10 reps plus. Most people cannot do these more challenging variations with sufficient control and with good technique. They just can't. I mean, doing a set of 10 on very wide grip pull-ups with a controlled eccentric, I mean, I would say probably like 10% of YouTube fitness viewers could actually do that. So it's nice to know, it's nice to optimize, it's a good variation, but it's simply inaccessible for most people. Same thing with something like a Nordic hamstring curl, when someone's like, yeah, do 3 sets of 10 on these with full eccentric control. Okay, great. What percentage of your audience can actually benefit from that or even do it? Probably less than 1%. I mean, I can't even do one fully controlled eccentric and concentric Nordic hamstring curl. So when someone's like, yeah, I wrote this in a plan, 3 sets of 8 to 10 Nordic curl, like what? Who is this for? Most people need assistance. And if you write that in, it's fine. But you can't be so blind to the abilities of others that you assume everyone can do that when almost no one can. By the way, this video is sponsored by Boostcamp. So one thing most advanced lifters do really well is track their training. And this is something that everyone should be doing. And if you're going to do it, you might as well use the best. So Boostcamp allows you to track everything. They also just launched Boostcamp 3.0, where you can use a web browser to create your own training plan. Super, super easy to use. Very, very intuitive. Great option there. Plus, you get access to some of the best plans out there. I myself have 3 plans up there with a 4th coming very, very soon. So check that out. You can use code GVS for 2 free weeks of premium. And thank you to Boostcamp for sponsoring this video. Next, volume might go down when you are very advanced. And this is something that took me a while to realize because I always thought volume would just go up and up and up. Beginners, least amount of volume, intermediates, Goldilocks zone, and then advanced and elite goes up and up and up. German volume training. I actually don't think that that is the case because when you are advanced, you are using heavier weights, which are more taxing, as I talked about before, but you're also capable of pushing yourself much harder. You look at the average intermediate or beginner, you look at them do a set, it's just not on the same level of actual effort and visualization and proximity to failure compared to someone who has been at this hardcore for a decade or more. And so you might not be able to handle as much when you are more advanced. Same thing with frequency. I've seen some powerlifters that only squat or deadlift heavy once every 2 weeks. And that's because they are ultra strong and it takes them that long to recover. Now, if you're an intermediate and you're trying to copy that programming of either low volume or very low frequency, you are just wasting your time because you don't need that much time to recover. So if there's an intermediate who's like, yeah, I'm doing a little bitch program, only squatting once every 2 weeks. You need more touches on the bar. You need to practice to get stronger and to get better at lifting so that you need that much time. And even then, you probably won't need that much time because Lillibridge was a fucking freak and he was using that much weight and he actually needed that much time. Most people don't. I mean, Mike Mentzer, he started out with volume and he built most of his muscle with volume. And then he switched to lower volume and his typical stuff without telling people that, hey, actually, maybe this isn't right for most intermediates and they should handle more volume with more frequency because they can. Number 4, lifestyle and stress. So the average fitness influencer, they often work a lot, but they have a lot of flexibility in their day. So I think it's a myth where a lot of them don't work hard. Most people that I talk to who are YouTubers or fitness content creators, they work a lot, but it's not a super stressful job. You usually don't have to commute and you can kind of just go to the gym whenever you want, and spending a couple hours there is very, very doable. For you, that might not be possible. So for me, time efficiency doesn't matter that much. I can kind of spend 2 hours a day in the gym if I really want to, and that is technically working. For you, that is not the case, and time efficiency is going to be quite important. So doing something like supersets, warming up maybe a little bit more quickly, alternating sets, maybe some kind of pyramid training where you're using your warm-ups and taking them as working sets in order to get warm, even if it compromises performance later. It's actually going to be faster and might be viable for you, whereas a fitness content creator, they might scoff at that style of training because it's not really needed for them. You also probably don't need time off or deloads. When there's some kind of fitness content creator who's suggesting, oh yeah, take a month off, that is just their projection onto their audience. And probably less than 1%, probably less than 0.1% of their audience could actually benefit from taking a whole month off. So you probably have vacations, you probably have holidays, you probably have random days where you just can't make it to the gym. That is totally normal for someone who is not fully invested, as a lot of content creators or influencers are, to that process. It's normal to have like a 5-day plan and you only make it 4 days a week. That's fine, and your plan needs to be flexible enough to accommodate that. Number 5, diet. Now the big one here is bulking. A lot of content creators, they're more advanced, they're not going to be gaining as much muscle, and so they tend to stay leaner and main gain. Greg Doucette was right. He was only right for a very small portion of his audience who were very advanced, who are not going to be gaining much muscle anyway, and thus for them, bulking might not make a lot of sense. But for the average beginner or intermediate, actively bulking, not super fast, not dirty bulking, but actively trying to gain weight and then quickly cutting off that fat and then bulking again, that is absolutely 100% the way to go. The trouble is a lot of these content creators, they forget that that's how they built their physique. That's how they built the vast majority of their muscle. Now they're promoting something else because that is their perspective and they are projecting that onto their audience. Same thing with how clean their diet is. I've seen a number of content creators where they are very, very health focused, and there's nothing wrong with that, but their audience might not be. They might not be focused on maximizing longevity. When you're into your 30s and into your 40s, goals often shift. And I'm not saying you shouldn't try to be healthy if you're in your 20s, but your lifestyle might be a little bit different. You might not be living like a hermit, and you might be going out to parties. You might be, God forbid, drinking alcohol. That's fine, and you can absolutely fit that into a fitness lifestyle. Number 6, moderation. Now, I think it's important to realize as a content consumer that attention is the currency of the internet. Attention equals money. If you can get eyeballs, you can monetize and make money from that attention. Therefore, the incentive for content creators is to get attention. Now, does reasonable advice, does moderate advice, does saying stuff that everyone else says because it actually works get attention? No. You have fitness influencers literally yelling and screaming for your attention, which has value. But you have to realize that this doesn't necessarily help you. You're not actually going to be benefiting from this super new technique, this extreme advice, this 12-hour arm workout or 3-minute abs. You're not benefiting from that. You're being used for your attention. So realize that what a lot of fitness content creators put out, it is not for you. It is for your attention. It is for your clicks. It is something just to ratchet up the number of views and likes and subscribes and numbers and hits of dopamine and hits in their bank account. It is not to benefit you. They could not give a flying fuck about your results. If anything, when you get results and stop watching, that hurts them. You staying small, but staying watching is their business model. So it's important as a fitness content consumer to realize that what the channel's incentives are, and realizing that the bigger the channel, the more they have probably played this game, and this game doesn't really benefit you. So I guess I've said the quiet part out loud there, but I think a more informed audience of fitness content consumers is probably overall a good thing. Helps you and it helps content creators in the long term because they have to elevate their game. And when people know the incentives and what is going on behind the scenes, ultimately it results in better results for everyone. Anyway, that is all for this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. Definitely check out my books if you're interested in changing the game for your hypertrophy training. Thank you so much for the support, and thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.